trying to get out there and make very clear that Republicans need to stop just waiting on Democrats to mess up in order for Republicans to get power. We need to come in and we need to fight. And look, step one, and it is the first step, step one is we must reject any spending deal Democrats put forward that empowers them to, in a lame duck, have the control of the pen to pass, hundreds of billions of dollars of additional spending and a bunch of bad policies. So we should reject any deal that puts spending into what we call the lame duck Congress if Republicans end up winning in November. The second thing is, when we're given power, Lord willing, from the American people in the House of Representatives, which is given the power of the purse, we should use it to actually cut the size of this federal government and stop the inflationary spending that the Democrats and, frankly, all too many Republicans have been engaged in. We should go back to pre-COVID spending, which is still outrageously high. And then third, we have got to use our power of the purse and other powers through hearings and everything else to ensure that we stand up and fight to stop the continued abuse of our border, killing Americans, migrants, and undermining our national security, to ensure that we end these vaccine mandates. We're seeing more and more evidence come out about how they're not only shouldn't be mandatory, they're potentially harmful. And thirdly, we've got to end the assault on American energy. We've got to restore American energy freedom and, basically end all of these crazy policies. So we should reject Democrat spending and, we should return to the spending levels that are pre-COVID, and we should restore sanity in our policies, and that's what we're saying.
Why would any Republican congressman be against that? I know they're gonna, but that's just common sense to me, Jay.
Yeah, I don't get it, and when we do win, I'm going to be a little more positive in November and get the majority. We've just got to stick to that. That's the most frustrating thing as a bystander and as a voter watching the Republicans get control, and then it all goes away.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you one reason why, right? Number one, they're always afraid of having some real big fight. But the biggest thing is they will hide behind defense spending, okay? Now, I just want to make sure everybody listens to this, because we all, I know, my Republican constituents, friends, colleagues, we support our men and women in uniform. We want a strong national defense. We want peace through strength. But we don't want it to be used as an excuse to rack up debt and to pass bad policies in the name of defense. And you see it all the time. So I promise you that's what the excuse will be. Oh, you can't return to pre-COVID spending because that'll destroy our defense. Bull. Get busy finding the savings you need to find in mandatory spending and entitlements, reform them to work, and stop feeding the beast of the FBI and the IRS agents that are screwing over the American people every day. It's not that we can't do it, it's that we refuse to do it.
Absolutely. I've never known of a government program to go away. But God willing, when Republicans take back the House, the Senate, and the White House, we'll start shrinking the size and scope of government. But being from Texas, Congressman, I'm sure you're seeing firsthand the effects of Biden's disastrous open border policies. What are they doing to y'all in Texas there that we might not see here in South Carolina, and what can we do to fix that?
Well, thanks for asking. Yeah, we are taking it on the chin on the front lines here in Texas. Of course, you notice Mayor Adams in New York and Mayor Bowser in D.C. are all apoplectic that Governor Abbott is sending a few hundred folks up there. Well, welcome to the party, man. We've been down here dealing with 8,000 a day coming across our border throughout the Southwest region, about half of which are coming through in Texas. The fact is, we have ranches getting overrun. We have people getting threatened. We have narcotics pouring into our communities. They're going throughout the United States of America, 107,000 dead Americans from fentanyl overdoses and poisonings. It's killing our kids. We're killing migrants. We're finding dead bodies of the migrants that these people say they're compassionate trying to help. And migrants are dying, and we've got mobile morgues and ranches to collect the dead bodies of migrants or finding bodies in the river. Look, it's absurd. Cartels are getting empowered. The cartels are getting enriched, and they're using that power to funnel Chinese-made fentanyl into our schools, into your schools, okay? Everybody listening to this, you know someone who has died or had a loved one die because fentanyl has been put into Xanax or Adderall or whatever it's been laced in, and we've got to stop it. It is actually a real, epidemic going on in terms of the damage being done to our young, and it is totally stoppable. But we refuse to with this administration embracing policies that basically say we're going to release anybody that comes across our border. That's what they're doing. Don't let them lie. They're releasing virtually everybody who crosses our border, so it's a magnet, and more people keep coming.
We can give billions to the Ukraine. We can hire 87,000 new IRS agents to investigate, mom and pop stores, but we can't finish the border wall, and that's absolutely disgusting to me.
Amen. I mean, that's the problem. We ought to build the wall, but importantly, for your listeners to understand, embrace the policies that will turn people away. They are hiding behind asylum, and meaning the Democrats running this administration, are hiding behind asylum and hiding behind little technicalities to release people into America, and they got to stop it. Build the wall and embrace the policies to turn people away, unless we're adjudicating some legitimate claim and they're held in full detainment for that time.
Right. Well, when we take back the House, what are we going to do to hold leadership's feet to the fire? How are we going to keep McCarthy to back some of these policies and actually be bold in his convictions?
Well, I'm glad you asked. The first thing we got to do is get everybody to rally around what we're calling for as the Freedom Caucus to demand these changes, right? To make sure we don't spend money we don't have, but importantly, we embrace those policies we already talked about. But the second thing is embrace rules changes that end proxy voting, rules changes that empower us to what you call vacate the chair, which is the leverage we have to say if the speaker's not doing what we want to have done, then we can change the speaker. We got to have power in the people's representatives. We got to restore your representatives' power rather than giving it to a handful of people to do deals in back rooms. If we do that and we restore debate and we can offer amendments on the floor and we can force people to take tough votes, then we can try to restore sanity. If we don't do that, then we won't be able to hold any of these folks accountable on either side of the aisle. If we want to take this country back, it begins and ends with a House of Representatives that actually represents the people.
So I know you're forcing, or at least trying to force, roll call votes on a lot of this stuff. We try to do it here in Columbia, and people lose their minds that they might have to have a recorded roll call vote. But one of the things here recently that really upset me, and I saw this on your Twitter feed, Congressman, is that we the Democrats, passed the so-called Inflation Reduction Act with a whole bunch of proxy votes, with their reason being COVID. But you go look at the CDC, they're taking stuff off their website now, their new guidelines. Another thing from your Twitter account, we've got people saying our data shows that if you're vaccine, you don't have COVID in your body or you can't get it. We're learning now that all that's bunk, but people are still giving their proxy vote for a giant spending bill, again, that hires 87,000 new IRS agents, and they're off somewhere else, not actually in chamber voting, but letting somebody else do it for them.
Well, really, thanks for bringing that up. We had last Friday, I just told you, I was in South Carolina. I was down in Beaufort, down visiting some friends down there. And by the way, South Carolina is a great state. I'm a big fan of South Carolina.
Well, we're a big fan of Texas.
The Low Country. Yeah, well, they're fairly similar in a lot of their beliefs and history and so forth. But look, we had 158 members of the People's House, so-called People's House, who filed a proxy, meaning they allowed someone else to vote for them. That's over 1/3 of the People's House, pushing close to half, right? And so that is a real problem where we've got people that are not showing up to vote. It allows the speaker to call votes in the middle of August with no debate and no actual consequences. And so we need to totally turn that on its head. Republicans must not only pledge, but actually change those policies when they get in. And people don't understand how much damage that does to the institution because we're not there actually engaging. You've just got a handful of people making all the decisions and then a bunch of yes people that are going home to their fundraisers or their, family vacations, and they're not showing up to work. If the American people have to show up to work, then the people who represent them should have to show up to work. And that's what I'm standing up and trying to fix.
Amen.